Hello, welcome. This is our first episode of Building Chicago with Global Builders Incorporated, and we're getting started today. The first interview for the show with the president of Global Builders,
Hello.
Carmen. Good to have you this morning. And
nice
so
to be here.
We're gonna jump right in, and the point of the show is just to kind of let people know and get to know personalities and people in Chicago construction. And let them get to know you and what you're doing and kind of how you got into it and what you're doing with construction in Chicago. So just to kind of get us started this morning, how did you get into construction? What was kind of the beginnings for you?
Roughly, I was about 17, 18 years old and trying to figure out what I wanted to do in my life like everybody does. I tried to do it early, so I decided to kind of, get into the construction, and I worked as a laborer and a carpenter for a contractor in Chicago. And I liked the drive. I liked the excitement.
Right.
I love showing up, right, and watching things happen. And so he hired me as a laborer, and then kind of brought me in a little apprenticeship program and taught me how to build decks and taught me how to do exciting stuff. So I worked for him for a couple of years as a carpenter, and then I decided to, I met another gentleman that was a roofer, and he says, there's a lot of money in roofing.
There's a lot of work in roofing too, yeah.
Let's open up a roofing company. And I remember one of my first projects was in the building next to the one that I was living in. And he says, my roof is leaking. And I told my buddy, and I said, hey, his roof is leaking. What should we do? He's like, let me go up there. So we go up there and take a look, and he says, we can fix, some of your flashing was loose. We can seal coat your roof, and $5,000-$6,000 later, we opened a roofing company.
Nice, that's awesome.
And I used projects to finance my efforts, right? Getting the van, getting the insurance, putting all the equipment together. And then we were doing 7 or 8 roofs on residential houses at a time. And you could tell how stressful sometimes it is managing employees and stuff like that. And you're working on a roof and then it starts raining.
Right.
And I remember the forecast was sunny, supposed to be sunny for 2 days. And then all of a sudden it started to rain. And so we're frantically putting the tarps over a shingle roof,
trying not to slide off the tarp.
Well, as if it's like this huge, like canopy and like umbrella ready to take us off. But started to work on larger roofs, commercial roofs, and then we started to do interior remodeling and such. And then I just started a construction company very young. It's interesting. I think my very first tax return was like 93 or 94. I was very young. I was like, and I filed a tax return and I showed my dad. I'm like, see, Dad, I'm something. And so I just worked on building room additions, and then just started, building bigger projects. And I got to build my first house. I was really young, and that was exciting.
Yeah.
And
where was it? Where was your first house?
My first house was in Berwyn. And then about the year 2003, 2004, it started to get really interesting. I started to get into some really big projects. And then I would say about 2005, 2006, I got my break, right? And a friend of mine calls me and says, I want you to build a strip mall for me. So my first strip mall was in Carpentersville. It's on Huntley and Randall Road. And the client was very interesting. He says, I want you to give me a price to build this 12,000 square foot strip mall. So it was, so I got all the contractors together, gave him the price, and it was $950,000. And he's like, okay, you got the job. I'm like, okay, great. I started building the building, and I asked him, I says, how much was the other guy? To be honest, if you were $1,300,000, he says, if you were a penny under $1,350,000, I still would have gave you the job. And I'm like, did I just lose $400,000? So I finished the job, got it done, made him happy, and I made money, right? After hearing those words, I didn't think I was going to make anything, but I made money. And then in about the year 2006, that's when I got my big break. A friend of mine says, hey, I want you to build a strip mall for me in Glen Ellen, 301 Roosevelt Road. And it was a cleaner's depot. Mm-hmm. So I said, yeah, sure, I'll build it. And I asked him, I says, let me go back and let me bid it. He goes, no. He goes, you have a $500,000 budget. Take it or leave it. I said, okay, fine. So I built it. From the time he told me to go, within 3 months, I had his certificate of occupancy.
Wow,
and
that's crazy.
There was a bunch of challenges. I learned a lot about how to deal with unions and everything else. And then after that, he says, I want you to build a high rise. I says, I'm going from building to a high rise. Yeah. And he says, he goes, I know you can do it. I want you to build it. And he says, if you need some help, I'll help you. I said, okay. So I got into a project, and it was called Chess Lofts. And it was a massive, massive building. And started construction. A couple days later, he says, I want you to build a subdivision. I'm like, wait a second here. I got this. Now you want me to build a subdivision? He goes, yeah, but this one's going to be a little tough. It's 69 single family homes, townhouses, all connected. I'm like, well, that's easy enough, right? He's like, there's a retaining wall and it holds up the highway and the train. So one side holds up the highway and the other side holds up the train. And he says, it's $3 million for this sheet piling wall, and we can't afford it. So I need you to figure out how to drive the cost down. So I pretty much picked out a system where it was giant retaining wall blocks, like 3 foot high, 8 feet long, 4 feet deep, and they're massive concrete blocks. So we poured a footing and then set these blocks up and poured concrete in them. It was crazy. So worked on those 2 projects, Chess Lofts and McKinley Gardens, and just started to build other projects from there. I did a Menards project and various different. I built a Walgreens, a lot of different projects, and but
Any specific stand out as a favorite, kind of a favorite project you look back at and maybe you drive by it and it's the one you're most proud of or anything like that?
I like my Walgreens project. It's in Wrigleyville, and I go there every once in a while, and I like it. It was exciting. I don't have to say I guess I can't say.
It's like choosing a favorite child, right?
Yeah, I mean, that was like one of the funnest ones. Sure. The Walgreens project. Cool. But yeah, so.
Yeah. What's of the construction process? Obviously, there's a ton of different phases to it, as from getting the contracts in place to starting construction to handing it over to the buyer. What's kind of your favorite part of the process, I guess, if you look at it?
My favorite part of the process is the action, right? I like, as an example, on a building that we're building on Roosevelt Road, we hired this company called Stallworth, and Stallworth brought this ABI, this $3.5 million machine, and to drive in these sheet piling, these steel sheets, and that's what you use to dig a basement, and it kind of shores up the earth. And and when it got delivered, it looked like a giant transformer.
Yeah,
it looked like what you've seen in Transformers, and it's going to transform it over. I mean, it was insane, and it had these attachments that are like $750,000 each. One attachment is like a vibro, and then the next one is like a press. And I mean, I like the action. I like when there's tons of people working, and I like to get involved. I always, I go to the jobs and kind of,
it's cool.
Sometimes it's logistics. A few days later, we had 45 trucks, semis in one day, and we had all the rest of this stuff going on, and we have all these people directing traffic. We're shutting the street down. Yeah. So yeah, it's exciting.
So when you think of residential construction versus commercial, what are some of the challenges in commercial maybe that somebody wouldn't think of when you think of residential? What are some of the additional challenges that might come along?
Well, in Chicago, it's site logistics, right? You only have so much room, and especially in Chicago, you build a building and it's in the middle of the block,
Right.
or it's on a corner, and you have to get street permits. You got street closure permits, crane permits. You got to put up scaffold, canopies. Building the building sometimes is not the hardest part. It's how to get the material there and where to set the crane up. And residential construction is, to me, it's rather boring. In St. Charles, I built a mansion. It was like 30,000 square feet. I mean, it was a huge house, and but I like commercial.
Yeah.
Right. You show up, there's tons of people.
Yeah. Obviously, when you're doing a project like that, you're pulling in people and teams and putting things together. How do you kind of cultivate a good environment to help get those projects done? Obviously, you're using people from all over the place. What's kind of your philosophy when you think about working together with different people like that?
Your company is the success of the project is only as good as the team that you put together, and it all starts with the superintendent, the project engineer, the project that come together and make the team, right? You need all these people, and you need them to work together well, and you need to work together in harmony. And there's a lot of stuff that goes in at the beginning of the project, getting the permits, getting the submittal packages, the RFIs, getting all these things and all these components to come together. So when you're ready to start the project, your site logistics plan's teed up and you're ready to go.
Yeah. So when you're looking to start a project, who's the kind of person that should be reaching out to Global Builders for a project? What's your ideal candidate, I guess, for a project for you?
My ideal candidate is real estate developers. So they have the dream, and I help. They have the dream, the vision, and I help make it a reality.
Yeah.
The real estate developer hires the architect, the expediters, the engineers, all these people, and then he hires the general contractor. So they design it, and I got to make it work.
Yeah. However that happens, right? You can make it happen.
It's tough. An architect puts something on paper, and then you have to physically build it.
Right.
And they're sitting in an office somewhere. No,
right.
It's so they design it, and I have to build it.
You build it.
I have to make it work.
So best way for people to reach Global Builders, obviously, globalbuildersinc.net.
Globalbuildersinc.net. We have our telephone number, 630-522-3300. You can contact us through our website.
Yep, website, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, however you want to reach out there. All right, this is my favorite part. So we're going to do the Chicago speed round. So I'm going to give you two options, and you're going to tell me which one you want as fast as it comes to your mind. If you have to think about it, then that ruins the game. All right, so here we go. Ready? Speed round. Ready? Waffles or pancakes?
Pancakes.
Cubs or Sox?
Cubs.
Deep dish or thin crust?
Deep dish.
Hot dogs, ketchup or no ketchup?
No ketchup.
Ketchup. Good job. Is it the Sears Tower or the Willis Tower?
It's the Sears Tower.
Of course it is. All right. Better movie, Blues Brothers or Home Alone?
Blues Brothers.
Blues Brothers. All right. Coffee or tea?
That's tough.
Tea. Tea. Jordan or LeBron?
Are we even in?
We're in Chicago, so you better get it right.
It's Jordan.
It's Jordan 100%. All day long. Yeah, so
I fight with my son about that all the time. It's Jordan.
It's always Jordan. So thank you so much, Carmen, for taking time to do this, and look forward to interviewing more folks coming up here very soon. And again, if you have a project you need help with, call Global Builders, and they'll be happy to help you with that. We'll look forward to seeing you next time for Building Chicago. Have a great day. Thank you very much.